some folks have about whether there are fare increases, service reductions, or expansion of light rail. Despite those complaints about this measure being specifically about max expansion to Clackamas County or one portion of Clackamas County, I think a greater understanding of what we're doing here should see this as an investment in a total transit operation throughout the metropolitan area of Portland. It does speak to Portland-Milwaukee light rail to the tune of about 36% of its overall investment. It also speaks to bus, rail, and lift communication systems and transfer printer system that will afford greater efficiency of operation and service delivery to our customers. It provides for new buses that are decades, that will replace decades-old buses. Vending machine system that will actually be marketplace-based and safety. That isn't Max exclusively, and it isn't Clackamas County exclusively. Board Member Prosser discussed the efforts of the entire board under their leadership of Board Member Schweitzer and Prosser in bringing a refined and more precise financial and strategic plan called Trimet. We have one now. We just think it needs to be more precise and more futuristic. The third element is that a number of you possibly in the audience, including myself and members of this board, are working in a variety of ways and have been over decades trying to figure out ways that Oregon, Portland, the region can fund its future in ways that are different than we do it today. Whether it's property taxes, payroll taxes, book sales, candy sales. Unfortunately, we don't fund our future, our kids' future very well. You've probably seen the poster, what if they had to do a candy sale to fund an airplane for the military? Well, we don't do that. Now, the point is that we should all continue in this process together to provide for the future. And that this single vote is not just about Max in Clackamas County. It's about the future operation of all of the transit throughout the region. And join with us in providing for a more precise strategic financial plan and continue to work with us to provide for a better way of providing for the future than having bake sales in our local schools.
How about the guy working? Thank you. I guess I would just add before we go to a vote, unless others had comment. It's clear to me that transportation funding in the United States is changing for a number of reasons. We've got a number of uncertainties that are facing us that are challenging, and we also know that our current budget is unsustainable the way it's set up right now. We have to do some changes, and what you're hearing here is this board is ready and is engaging and rolling up its sleeves to figure out how we can address the financial future. When I look at this item we're going to vote on, it's just good business sense to invest in capital that we have. I need to say that I'm also a supporter of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail, and I do want to see it move forward. And in fact, the previous board actually approved $40 million for that project, and so actually we're asking for an additional 70, is that right? $71 million in terms of bonding authority here, which most of it is to cover everything not related to the light rail. So they're critical to our future, our operation, and I think that it does make good business sense, but we do need to reevaluate our overall financial plan. I think the way we fund projects, as you said, Director Clark, in this region is going to be looked at differently in the future as we move forward with new projects. So I think we need to move forward. We need to give the staff to go ahead to get these resources to move forward not only on the commitments we've made in the federal government on the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project, but also to keep the system modernized and up to speed to have the latest technology, making the system safer and more efficient for everyone. So with that, I guess, is there other comments, or are we ready for a vote?
One final comment in regards to my vote on the motion. I'm actually in a position where I'm going to abstain from the vote, not because I don't support what we need to do here. I fully support everything that the other board members have said, and that's why I'm not presenting a no vote. But where I have my discomfort is the fact that I've spent the last, probably ever since I got on the board in February, engaged in the budget side of things. And over the last few weeks, that's where I've been putting a lot of effort talking to a number of stakeholders and citizens and people involved and engaged in the process, and I haven't had the opportunity to really vet more so the projects on the list. And so that's where I have a little bit of discomfort. And so I don't want to make it appear that I don't support, the direction we're headed in the process in the business sense. And Beth Hamill and her team have been phenomenal, answering every single question I've posed, and I think in a way that I can fully understand and comprehend and inculcate. So I just wanted to make that statement in regards to what my position is going to be. But again, it's not to say that I don't support where we need to go, where we are. Now we need to do it. It's just I haven't had the opportunity to fully vet based on spending a number of hours basically on the budget side of things, even though they're both closely.
All right, we ready for vote? So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Zero.
Abstention? One abstention. So the motion is approved with one abstention. Thank you. Moving on to resolution number 2.
What motion gets passed? What motion gets passed?
We just approved the resolution authorizing the debt. So that's resolution 12-06-44 is what was just approved by the board. All right, moving on to the next resolution, which is resolution 12-06-45, authorizing modification to a contract with Stacy Whitbeck Incorporated, Mowat Construction Company, a joint venture for construction management general contractor services for the west segment of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project. Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, this is a contract modification to a contract that you originally established in January of 2011. Since that time, we've actually been back to you with 4 separate modifications, and we've gone through this explanation in the past where we actually layer pieces of scheduled critical work in each modification until we get to a point where we have full funding grant agreement approval, federal government approval to advance the whole project, and indeed a full, complete, final design that has been able to be priced and vetted in a commercial setting. And we are at that point with this particular contract now. So you've approved layers of work that included originally contracting steel for the harbor structure, some water and sewer relocation work, and retaining walls. This is modification number 4, to be clear, and it is for $62,796,000. It is the full panoply of work necessary to complete the west segment of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project, which runs from the current light rail terminus at PSU down to the south waterfront connection to the new Portland-Milwaukee Bridge. This has been, again, this total price is actually under Trimet's fair cost estimate. And it is, we believe, a very fair and reasonable price. We've also asked the board for an authorization of a 3.5% change order allowance. That represents, frankly, a very low change order allowance for the kind of work that we're doing, but it also represents the fact that we've been able to work closely with the contractor, the designers, and the staff, and the jurisdictions to make sure that we've squeezed as much risk out of the work as we possibly can at this early stage. The other thing I would note is this contractor is doing an extraordinarily good job with disadvantaged business and workforce hiring. The disadvantaged business participation is 22%, and that is committed to related to this work. And we've had some really excellent work in terms of bringing both some very experienced disadvantaged business and some new businesses into the fold of our work. So with that, I would recommend approval or be available to answer questions as we can.
Questions of the general manager?
I have a quick question here. This is modification number 4,
Right.
but it incorporates all previous modifications into the total. So not to say that there wouldn't be a 5. This is just where we are today.
And I think this is actually what we will do from here on. I'll look to Dan as for verification, is that there will be perhaps, there could always be a change order between our circumstances that come up. But this is the complete package of work.
Good morning. I'll just reinforce what Neil just said. It's really a term of art. We use the term modifications for each of those layers of scope as we add them. This is the last one, unless we were to come back and add a big piece of scope. If that work has changes to it, to the scope that's been approved, then that'll come back as a change order, and that's what the change order allowance is for. Does that clarify?
Yes.
Seeing no other questions, are we ready for a motion? So moved, Mr. Chair. Have a motion? Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I will point out, nobody did sign up to testify on this item. So with that, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Resolution number 3, which is Resolution 12-06-46, authorizing a modification to the contract with Stacy and Whitbeck Incorporated for construction manager, general contractor services for the east segment of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Transit Project.
So, Mr. President, this is the resolution that I think we
I'm
should
sorry.
defer and pull.
You're right, it was.
And just a quick update, we actually are updating these numbers, and I think we'll have a more favorable contributor tell you at our meeting at the end of June, and so we wish to defer it until then.
So I get it on the third time. Thank you very much. All right, so let's move to resolution item number 3, which is grade 4 on my list here, which is resolution 12-06-47, which authorizes Trimet to acquire by purchase or by exercise of the power of eminent domain certain real property necessary to the construction of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project.
Yes, Mr. Board President, members of the board, per our briefing conversation over the last month, we've reviewed the property acquisition program for the Portland-Milwaukee project. And based on where we are with the project and the approval of the full funding grant agreement and the need to rapidly move ahead with a number of property acquisitions, we agreed upon a system where there would be a deferral to us of the condemnation authority for small parcels. And so what this resolution does really follows up on that conversation that we had more fully at a briefing session. And it authorizes advanced condemnation, if necessary, for 114 small parcels. And again, the criteria by which this was laid was, as we talked at our briefing, this parcel is valued under $500,000 and not requiring a relocation. So in most cases, 100 of these 114 properties are actually have an estimated value under $50,000, and they tend to be small strips of property, pieces, partial acquisitions, as we call them, that don't affect a relocation of the current tenants or occupants, or in most cases, I think in actually all of these cases, some temporary strips of access while we construct, so that temporary construction easements is what they're termed. And again, these are all parcels that are listed in the attachment to the resolution, and they are a combination of a couple of full takes that are low value, mostly partial takes, and then permanent and or temporary easements. And so with that, I recommend approval, or certainly be willing to answer any questions.
So questions of the general manager? Okay, I think this is consistent with the direction we gave in the work session of last formal meeting. So do I have a motion then to approve this resolution?
So
Second.
We have a second here. With that, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Okay, now we'll go to the final resolution before we get to the services, their ordinances, and the budget, which is Resolution 12-06-48, authorizing Trimet to acquire by purchase or by exercise of eminent domain a certain real property necessary to construct the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Board President, members of the board, this is outside of that threshold that we talked about. So again, an individual action coming to the board related to the property acquisition. This is for the McKellis property, which is actually just down the street from us, 17th and near Holgate, and between Holgate and McLaughlin. Again, some parcels on the east side of 17th and some parcels on the as the alignment would curve onto McLaughlin. We have been working with the owners of these properties very well and very closely, and we're very pleased to note that the current plans are to remain on site. One of the important things about the condemnation process, as you know, is it allows us to deposit our expected amount for payment of the property into court accounts, and then based on the normal procedures, that property owner has access to that. Access to those funds early is important for the property owner to make sure that they can do the efforts that they need to relocate on site, primarily on the eastern side of 17th. So again, we have a very close working relationship with the property owner. This is something that they want because they want to have time to review with us the actual acquisition price, but they also recognize the schedule imperative of beginning to move and relocate, and so access to the funds that the condemnation process allows would be advantageous to both parties in this case. With that, we'd certainly be happy to answer any other questions and recommend approval.
Questions for John Ryder? Yeah, I'll just point out, nice map.
We've been working on it.
It was very, one thing I might suggest is if you just shaded the temporary easement things in a little bit, that would tell us which ones we really need to acquire, which ones we're just temporarily acquiring. But thank you for those maps. So with that, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I see none. It's approved unanimously. All right. And this concludes the main business items that before our budget. So for everybody in the audience, we're now down to the discussion of the fiscal year 13 budget. As I think all of you are aware in this room, the board faces difficult decisions as it balances the budget for fiscal year 2013. In light of a slow economy, which impacts our payroll taxes, potential cuts in federal funding, which we're still trying to understand what's really going to happen there, an unsettled labor contract, we've gone through arbitration but don't have a decision. We face a budget shortfall between $12 and $17 million for the upcoming fiscal year. So today we're going to take and consider a number of items. There's 4 of them that we have together we'd like to get your comments on. First off, we have a policy statement put together that talks about, again, our direction in terms of how we develop the budget and what we'd like to see staff moving forward on in the future, kind of similar to the discussion we had during the item on the bonding. We have 2 ordinances, one dealing with service adjustments and the other with fare increases. And then finally, the adoption of the fiscal year 2013 budget. So that's assuming that we move forward and adopt those. The budget that's before us has been molded by comments from you, our writers, community stakeholders, and so many more. I was pleased to see the additional outreach effort the staff undertook to get comments from as many people as possible. I'm pleased to report that 16,000 comments were received on our budget. So we had a number of folks help us put together the budget and wanted to help us in terms of our current budget situation. It hasn't been easy, and the service cuts and fare increases that, if approved, are going to be definitely felt by a number of folks. The policy statement before us acknowledges what we've heard and how we're directing staff to proceed, as I said. And while there are several budget alternatives out there, we do need to, as was discussed before, put Trimet on a strong fiscal foundation in order to help move us forward. As we open today's hearings on the ordinances, we will also take comments on the budget and on the policy statement altogether. All other matters will be heard during the public forum. So if you're not here to testify about those items, we'd ask that you refrain and wait until the public forum, if we indeed have time for a public forum today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our General Counsel, Janet Turan.
Thank you. I'll begin with ordinance number 322, an ordinance of the Troy County Metropolitan Transit District of Oregon adopting service changes and amending Trimet Code Chapter 22. And then ordinance number 323, an ordinance of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, adopting fare increases, youth and honored citizen 1-day and 7-day passes, youth annual pass, repealing half-month pass, fare zone boundaries, free rail zone, revising honored citizen downtown pass program, annual pass programs over provisions, proof of fare payment and other fare provisions, and amending Trimet Code Chapters 19 and 29.
So everybody in the audience, what we just did is we read the titles on the two actual ordinances we have before us. And there's also a resolution which we have, which will adopt, if we take action on it, our fiscal year 13 budget. So I'll read that title of that resolution aloud now. That is Resolution 12-06-49, with authorizing the fiscal year 2012-2013 annual budget, appropriating funds, and levying a property tax. And so those are the documents, the policy statement, the two ordinances, and the resolution that we would like to hear comments on together if we can. So I'm going to now open the floor for public comment on the board's policy statement, the two ordinances and the resolution. I do want everybody to know that we have about 46 people who want to have signed up, who want to testify. And I'm glad to see that number of people wanting to sign up and provide input to us. However, with the number of votes, we're going to have to impose some strict time limitations to allow us to get to everybody. Or if you're here with a group, if you could have one of your people be the spokesman for the group, or if you're just there to reiterate another point that somebody else has made, please just make that point so we can get on and get to everybody that's on this list. I think based on this, looking at the timeline, I'm thinking we need to limit to about 2 minutes. And that will put us probably after 11:30. So I've got a feeling that the normal public input session will just, I think, be deferred and allow us to focus on these, if that's all right with the board. Is that okay with that? Okay. So 2 minutes is long. We're going to set it. Why don't we set it for 1.5 minutes? Can you do that?
No.
Listen, so I set it for 1.5 minutes, so you know when things are. Your time is right now. And so I'm going to start now.
Why don't you shorten another testimony? Why you stay here long enough?
If folks want to make spokespeople for this, we have limited time today to go through all of the testimony. So go ahead, make it 2 minutes without James. I want you to know when that buzzer goes off, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your testimony. Intent was 1.5 minutes to give you a fair warning that it's coming. So 2 minutes, so we got that set for them, right? I'm going to pull you up at two at a time to make testimony. And again, please, if the points have already been made and we've heard a lot of testimony, please just indicate your support for past positions and testimony that's already been provided to the board. Okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I want to suggest that as we called them up, the first two come, that you call the second two and have it on deck. That will help in terms of some transition time, and when the first two finish, the second two can set, and the next two can be standing on deck, ready to move in.
Thank you, Dr. Beth. That's an excellent suggestion. I will take you up.
He's going to take it down.
Okay, so we have the first two is Bill Boyd and Mara Gross, and the second two are Antonio Santana and Con Pham. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, my name is Bill Boyd, and I'm a supporter of Opal, and I work at Join, which is a service organization that helps people move from homelessness into permanent housing. And while affordable housing is our main goal, affordable mobility is critical to helping people find work, getting to school or their doctor, or getting to the store. And without affordable mobility, people can become trapped, isolated, and their success becomes threatened. Our organization spends thousands of dollars each month buying Trimet passes and tickets for our folks, and many of those buy their own tickets. So any fare increase will disproportionately impact our folks and many people who are living in similar situations, and impacting their ability to be successful in their housing transitions, and also impacts our organization's ability to continue to afford, pay for people's transitions out of homelessness. I support the proposals by Opal to eliminate the $5 million rainy day fund that was alleged to go to security, to use that to keep fares low at this point. And I also support Opal's proposal keeping the flat fare at $2.25 and doing whatever you can to keep youth and honor citizen passes affordable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insights.
I haven't had time to cut my testimony down because I'm the second testifier, so I hope you'll give me a little leeway. Good morning, my name is Mara Gross. I'm the Policy Director at Coalition for a Livable Future. We unite over 100 diverse nonprofits, businesses, and governments in the Portland metro area, and our work focuses on promoting healthy communities where everyone has opportunities to meet their needs and advance their well-being. In a recent letter to the Trimet Board on the importance of addressing equity, CLF member and Oregon Environmental Council did a great job explaining how much there is to appreciate about our transit system. Many people live without a car, shortness, air quality, climate protection, managing growth in a positive way, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. And as Trimet works to balance a difficult budget this cycle and in the long term, ask that you work to protect all of these things. And specifically ask that you not increase fares to $2.50 this cycle. Increasing fares by nearly 20% for current two-zone riders on top of fare increases over and over the last decade is a huge jump, and it particularly hurts the health and economic opportunities for low-income people who rely on the bus, and for whom a nearly 20% fare increase is a serious burden. Trimet's plan to increase subsidies through social service agencies is laudable, but inadequate in scope to address the impact of this change. By Trimet's own estimates, this proposal also cuts ridership by between 1 and 2 million trips, 2% of all rides, cutting into the many benefits, and Trimet does all it can to avoid that. And so whether that means changing the contingency amount or making changes elsewhere in the fund balance, we're talking about $5 million to prevent a major fare increase. With an ending balance of over $100 million, that small shift to avoid jacking fares, getting us through this rainy day, seems like a pretty reasonable approach. I appreciate the time Trimet staff and several board members have spent meeting with me and other partners and responsiveness to eliminating the transfer proposal and starting to gain a common understanding of the need to improve data collection to better understand EJ impacts of proposals. I'm committed to working with you on long-term strategies, and in the meantime, ask that you protect the system we have by protecting ridership and riders, and maintaining reasonable fares that choice riders are willing to pay and low-income riders that are able to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Antonio, Ron, please come up. Antonio, just one moment. What was that again?
Antonio had to leave, so just...
Oh, okay. And I just want to make sure Heidi Guin and Rodgren come up to the next two. Go ahead, Con, please.
Good morning, Trimet board members. My name is Con Pham, and I work at Opal, and I'm a student at Portland State. I ride the bus almost every day, and I'm here to tell you that the fare increases that are being proposed are going to have a hugely negative impact on the lives of bus riders. Bus riders are already struggling to pay the $2.10 fare as they struggle to make ends meet on minimum wages. Many have been looking for work for months. Others struggle to find bus fare to pick up their children from school and get to night classes themselves. Buses are a lifeline for hundreds of thousands of people in the metro region. I urge you to fully consider all the options on the table before you move forward in making a decision on next year's budget. I'm not the same person who sat here before you 4 months ago. I've learned so much being a part of Opal during this Trimet budget process. It's been incredibly empowering for me to be able to delve into the budget and learn what all the numbers and confusing categories mean, and also to figure out what those abstract numbers mean for the lives of the bus riders that I talk to and ride with every day. I commend Trimet for engaging with Opal in this process. It's not a perfect process, since I have to represent the voices of hundreds of bus riders who can't take off work on a Wednesday morning.
But this process of public meetings and negotiations and rallies are what real democracy looks like. And I ask you to please ensure that our hard work, sweat, and tears that we put into our budget alternative was not just an empty gesture. Impressive, but ultimately meaningless. We devoted months of our lives listening to writers, debating with our members, and calculating and recalculating the numbers in order to develop our proposal. I ask that you take the lead from the bus riders you represent and read our Bus Riders Unite budget alternative into the record. This budget decision is too important to rush into a decision. Don't make a decision today. Please take the time you need to fully consider all the different alternatives. Thank you.
Heidi, is that you?
Good morning. My name is Heidi Kinnan. I'm the Transportation Policy Coordinator with Upstream Public Health. Upstream Public Health is a public health policy organization that works to create the social and environmental conditions where all Oregonians can thrive. And we prioritize transportation policy because it significantly impacts the health, safety, and livelihoods of all Oregonians, and particularly those with the fewest options. We recognize the critically important role that Trimet service plays in supporting community health by providing access to work, school, and other daily necessities, by reducing single occupancy vehicle trips, meaning also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution, and by supporting active transportation as an extension of the pedestrian and the bicycle networks. We really appreciate the time the staff has taken to provide timely responses to our questions, but we remain very concerned about the proposal that would increase fares for current two-zone riders by nearly 20% and reduce transit trips by 1.1 million. As we previously testified and discussed with staff, we're very concerned about the impact of these higher fares and the lost trips, and especially because we don't have enough information to understand the magnitude of these impacts on transit-dependent individuals. Faced with even more severe budget gap, the transit agency in Boston provided public health professionals with information about how their two budget proposals would impact air quality, vehicle miles traveled, time spent driving, and ridership loss. Researchers used this data to calculate costs to the region in terms of public health and economic costs, and they found that reducing service and increasing fares to close a $161 million gap would ultimately cost the region between $272 million and $386 million. The only comparable data provided by Trimet during this budget process is the number of trips lost, which, following the same peer-reviewed models used in Boston, and assuming that 95% of those lost trips would convert to driving, we will lose over 72,000 hours of physical activity by conservative estimates. This will increase risk of mortality for those who convert to driving by 7% and will result in nearly $3 million in lives lost per year due to decreased physical activity. We don't know how these increased fares and lost trips will be broken down, but we can expect that plenty of the burden will fall on transit-dependent communities by severely limiting their transportation options or increasing the amount of budget household that their household budget that has to be spent on transportation. We ask the Trimet Board, in recognition of the dramatic impacts of this fare increase, to work with staff to continue to study the budget alternatives that would place less of a burden on the communities with the fewest options. Thank you.
Mr. Gregory, is that you? All right. Jonathan Oster, you want to come up and also join in? And then the next two are Hector Osuna and Teresa Pisci-Solo. Soto. Okay, with T. Right. Thank you.
My name is Barry Fogring, and I live in Southeast Portland. Right now, the price of oil is going down. This is mainly due to our crashing economies. If you look at it, the cost of oil is going up because we're using up the cheap oil. The first oil wells were discovered in Pennsylvania when we dig down 6 feet. Now we dig down, we drill down 3 miles. And that's why the cost of oil is going to keep on rising. Yet we find ourselves in a self-imposed straitjacket trap of our own making, where we waste energy in order to save money. This is foolish. In the future, we'll be looking back at all the oil we have wasted on suburban commuting, and we wish we had it back. Here is a chance where we can at least take a small step towards saving that energy. I know this is a bigger problem than just here in Portland. It's a global problem. We have to start thinking of the future. As far as debt goes, we just add that if we had a state bank, we would pay that interest to ourselves and not the Wall Street banks. Thank you. Thank you.
Jonathan, again, you have any testimony?
No, Chair. What's coming around is a draft of an ordinance that represents the budget alternative developed by Bus Riders United. Now you have that in front of you so that today you can pass a motion that reads that formally into the record, and that can be taken up for consideration on second reading on June 27th and meaningfully be considered as part of this budget process. So before I go into the testimony, everybody who's here to support this budget alternative by Bus Riders United, can you make some noise? So thank you for that. I know that's not normal for your meetings, but this shows you that the community is deeply, deeply concerned about the direction that we're heading in. And I want to thank you, first and foremost, those board members who have taken the opportunity and met with us over the last several weeks. We've had some great conversations. I think that we've moved forward in terms of transparency and discourse in this budget cycle. I think we're covering some new ground, but we still have a long way to go. I also want to thank CFO Beth Hamill because she's been available to us. We've worked with her and her staff to make sure that the numbers are accurate. The only number that's not agreed upon is the cost estimate for extending transfer times to 3 hours, and you've heard us talk at length about that over the last year and a half. So I do want to thank you for that, but I want us to take a step back and remember how we got here. The budget process internally at Trimet started last fall. In October, with establishing very conservative underlying budget projections, and a budget task force that was convened by the general manager, and who decided not to subject it to the public meeting laws. So there was no direct rider representation on that budget task force. And they were charged with, do I recommend fare increases or service cuts? That's not a full conversation. What we're asking for on contingency, I want to be clear, we want a 20 million contingency if we can have it, but we can't. Right? We are in agreement that a 20 million contingency would be fantastic, right? But there has to be some balance between an unsubstantiated 5 million increase and the very real impacts that people are going to face every single day in the form of higher fares and less service. And we haven't seen that conversation take place here at the board. So what we're asking for today is that you hold off on making any final vote on the ordinances or on the final budget package, that you read our budget proposal into the record so that it can be meaningfully considered. Because if it isn't read into the record, it hasn't been meaningfully considered. And you can't hide behind your process in this regard. And so we look forward to having another 2 weeks to engage with you on the board and have further discussions that think they're fruitful. And then we come back on June 27th and we strike a better balance. So thank you for your time.
We have Hector and Teresa.
Mr. Board President, before you continue, I'd like to point out that the proposed ordinance number 324 would not be able to be considered read today. We have to first provide public notice. So just the board members are aware that this is not a matter to take up today.
You can't hide behind your process, Hector.
We will get to some questions if any board wants to answer this. Thank you very much. Everybody has some questions. So let's go to Hector and Teresa.
Hi, good morning. My name is Hector Usuni. I am the community organizer for Mobile Environmental Justice Oregon. Today is the day that you can make a difference for many people in this region. Today is the day that you can stand and deliver hope that has lost it. Or today, you can take it away from you. That's why I ask you to remember your journey, your struggles, and those moments in which you wanted to find someone or something that could flourish that lost hope inside of you. Chair Warner, you went on public record announcing the Trimet Board will take all the time necessary to make a just decision. We're counting and expecting your word to stay true. We have also heard the board praising Vogel for professionalism, our manner in which we present information, the way we carry ourselves in these meetings, and most important, the interest of developing a relationship, mutual collaboration, and understanding between Trimet and transit-dependent individuals. We hope you can keep your part of that. For many people that I've talked to on the bus and at bus stops for the past 3 months, they're surviving paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet. While some are lucky to have a job, others are looking for it. There is a sense of anxiety because of the state in which they're in. And once they let them know of potential fare increases and service cuts, people look at me with eyes of apprehension, and they tell me that's all Trimet knows how to do, raise fares and cut bus service. How do they expect people to get to work or do things? Now, I will need to stay at my house more than before. This brings me to the point that with any type of relationship, collaboration, and understanding, there has to be some give and take. And although your main task is to balance the budget, your decision can imbalance or balance the livelihood of transit-dependent individuals. Understanding that if you're asking transit-dependent riders to tighten up their belt, then you have to also tighten up your belt. Demonstrate to the people in this region that you are committed in this relationship. Show them that you care and that you understand their struggle. So today we demand that the Trimet Board reads Vogel's alternative budget into the record. That's the board to make use of the ideas that have been developed by the transit-dependent users, and most important, that you stay true to your word and take all the time necessary to make a just and equitable decision. Today, stand with us and read it. Give hope to the people that need it the most, to the low income, people of color, people with disabilities, the elderly, the youth, and to those that are at the edge of becoming homeless. Stand with us today.
Hello, I'm Teresa Casey Soto, and I am transit-dependent, a transit-dependent bus rider. I have been with Vocal for almost 2 years as a volunteer. Organizing people, activating leaders has enabled me to have a voice in representing myself and other bus riders. In adopting measures and policies to balance the budget, Trimet has unfairly targeted the bus riding community. What store, vendor, or place of business faces its crisis and gives you less service? The service on the number 9 has been cut back so much that we often have to wait 40 minutes for a bus to get us past Southeast 82nd. This is during the week. On the weekends, the wait is even longer. Do you not realize that our time is as valuable as yours? We are already stressed on missed transfers, fare hikes, and the planning that goes into making it to the bus stop for a bus that is hopefully on time and will show up. Trimet, when you cut service again, when you raise fares again, when you continue to irritate bus riders by making connections impossible, when you allow buses to pass up people who are in wheelchairs due to cuts in service, when you fail to listen to our collective voices, you are treating us like second-hand citizens. And if you had never had the experience of feeling like a second-class citizen, just go out to a bus stop that has no shelter, wear your raincoat, rain boots, and your umbrella. Stand there during one of our thunder and lightning, the sky rips open rainstorms. You will get soaking wet. Make sure that you pick a bus stop that is right on the road so that you will have the experience of being soaked over and over again by the cars driving by as you wait for the bus. No one deserves this. Please find your board members. Hold Trimet accountable. Share information with the community about how you reach decisions and how the company works. I ask that you read our budget alternative proposal into the record so that it can truly be considered. Above all, I ask that you make decisions that affect us bus riders as if though they were impacting your lives too. Muchísimas gracias. Viva Vocal.
Cliff Hutchinson and Terrence Coleman, is it? Coleman, well, thank you. And Tabitha and Lisa Serrano to be in the batter's box.
is made for us, made for all the people, for a time like this, to preserve the bus service that thousands of people are already dependent on. And that's a better use of the funds than many of the things that you have yet to make decisions on in the budget. So I would ask that you postpone making this vote today until we have 2 more weeks of discussion and have more public input. And I don't raise my rates and cut services in my business. I would go out of business. So I really think you should take it into consideration and compare your budget decisions not with just other government agencies, but with private businesses as well. So thank you for your time.
Good morning, my name is Terrence Coleman, and I'm a member of Political and Civil Rights United. I was born in the Bronx, New York, and I've been involved in civil rights movement and action since I was 13 years old. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. I served in the 82nd Air Force, so I'm well versed in the forces of greed and oppression. I've been on the wrong end of this most of my life. Whether you are willing to admit it or not, Trimet is perpetrating this oppression through the total disregard you display for the most vulnerable of our society. For at least the past 10 years, this board has been engaged in an active act of economic warfare against those of us who are dependent most on transit, the poor, people of color, the elderly, youth, people with disabilities, and the houseless. Homeless says that a person has no heart. Just because you don't have a home does not mean you do not have a heart. You've been raising fares for as long as I've been on. I have been cutting bus services when we need service